we all need to push beyond our comfort zones. And Marcia's work, if you saw in her bio, she does it at the level of organizations and systems. And so I can't think of anyone who's better for doing that for us. So, Marcia.
I don't know about you, but I've had a wonderful time this last day and a half of being inspired to the point of almost aggravation. Like, I started thinking back of all the events that I have participated in where there just wasn't that level of inspiration, where there wasn't a new and big idea that I had to really wrap my head around and think, how am I going to keep from my head exploding? I need to actually internalize this and be able to hold it in my thinking for long enough to be able to do something useful with it. And I think that's the mark of an opportunity we have to learn together, to live together, to be together. But I think it would be a horrible mistake if we left this venue and we were only inspired. I believe that all learning physically changes who we are. I actually began my work, my career at the National Institute of Mental Health, actually understanding how the brain works, how we both take in information, how we process that, and how we can actually do something different with that. And so I know that taking in is only a small part of it. A huge part of it is actually making it part of who we are and then being able to do something with it. And so it's with that frame that we'll be talking this afternoon. Now, everything I have said up until this point, I have said before to some group of people. I'll admit that. A lot of the speakers who've been here, we've listened to them say things that they've probably said a few times before. Well, in that uncomfortable part that Mark alluded to earlier, I'm about to say some things I've never said in public before. I've never been vulnerable enough or been willing to risk working with a group of people and saying what I feel needs to be said very much. And if you notice the hairs sticking up on my arms, it's not just because I'm a little nervous, but it's because I'm also fully alive, knowing that it's time and knowing that you all are the ones I want to share what I have to say with. So hopefully you're okay with that as well. But it won't be polished, it won't be slick, but damn, it's going to be real. So with that, I'm going to take a little bit of a seat. And I'm going to tell you that for the last about 10 years of my life, I have been, like many of you, in the people business. I've been in the business of helping very large organizations, in fact, the largest organizations, fix their messes. Of actually creating workplaces where people want to go every day, where work doesn't suck. That's often, in fact, what I'm asked to do. But often I'm asked to keep them from being out of the headlines because they laid off 100,000 people the following Monday. And I am brought in to help their culture fundamentally change who they are, what they are, and how they work, so that all the people who work in those organizations can not just survive, but truly thrive. And for the most part, that's a pretty enviable position, right? Oh, that's kind of a cool job. I wish I did that. And if you're wondering if these are messes you've heard about, I will tell you in many cases they are. I hadn't even realized that I was in the business of helping fix or rectify horrible messes until I was standing in the boardroom at Tyco. And while standing there and not even realizing, because I came to give a presentation, that I was actually being interviewed, that I was asked by one of the C-level leaders if I had ever worked with an organization like them. That was actually the words. Have you ever worked with an organization like us? And I thought to myself, yeah, actually I have. I was brought into the CIA after the 9/11 Commission reports came out. Consistently, I've been dealing with organizations in their worst days. And some leader in the organization brings me in to figure out what the heck is going on, to enroll the people who can help turn that around. But that's not actually why I'm telling you the story. I'm here to tell you the story because I did this until about this week last year, when my father started dying. Actually, like all of us, he's been dying for a while. We all have in some ways. But he took a pretty rapid nosedive. And like many of our parents, we have those stories. And my dad, when I was really little, was an inner city Chicago school teacher. And I was about 7 years old. And he came into my room. And he sat on the edge of my bed, and he said, I'm going to be gone for the next 2 weeks. I just want you to know what's going on. And I've decided that I can no longer be an inner city school teacher. I'm too tired. This is exhausting work. I've always wanted to change the world, to improve the world, but it's too much. I can't do it anymore. And I'm going to become a stockbroker. And I'm going to make as much money as I possibly can and support you for the rest of my life, if that's what I need to do, so that you can go out and change the world. I was 7. Pretty much every day of my life since then, I have been asking that question of myself and the people around me that says, am I doing all that I can to improve the world? And frankly, until about a year ago, I justified helping keep the jobs of hundreds of thousands of employees worldwide as my justification that I was actually helping to save the world. In fact, many of you, I suspect, believe that you are doing what needs to be done by helping organizations do what they have set off in their mission. And I don't mean to insult you. I don't mean to give you any trouble about the work that you do. But what I ask you to do is to ask yourself if that's true. Because about a year ago, I live in a small community in rural Virginia. I should probably point that out. And when I go to work, it's usually on an airplane. And in this particular day, I got a phone call, and I was asked to go out to lunch by not just anybody, but the former director of the Santa Fe Institute. People know what the Santa Fe Institute is? The largest think tank specifically around complexity science, for example. And the former director happened to be in Stanton, Virginia. And he asked me if I could go to lunch with him. And I said, sure. I showed up at his office. It was sort of like a rented office. And I came in, I saw what was going on, and he said, well, do you like what we're doing? And I said, I don't even know what you're talking about. I don't know why I'm here. I'm just here because I never get invited to lunch. I never actually have meetings in Stanton, Virginia. And sure, I showed up for lunch. And he said, well, before I left the Santa Fe Institute, a group of us started having conversations about the fact the world was going to hell. Okay, that's a big one. But more importantly, we started losing faith in the systems that we as a society rely on. The banking system isn't really working. The school systems are definitely not working. The economics, the community, the health. Instead of us thinking to ourselves, let's help other people do whatever it is they do, maybe it's time that we actually start using what we know about complexity science, using all of our brains, using all of our research, using all of our knowledge, and actually begin to start building an alternative set of systems so that when these start falling, we're not going to take them down, the systems that are in place, when they start falling, that there will be alternatives. And they had, in fact, assembled a group of about 50 people, some Nobel laureates, a Buddhist monk, a wide variety of academics and business people, and some incredibly amazing people to come together and been meeting for about 18 months at that point in time in order to provide alternatives to these systems that were falling apart. And Jim looked at me and he said, "Are you in?" I said, "No, actually." Couldn't believe I said that, but in hindsight, I understand why I did. I said, I can't because, first of all, my father's dying, and I don't know when I'm going to have to actually get to St. Louis and be able to help and support my family. But more importantly, I spent my entire adult life working on this. I was the person who, when Dee Hock, the founder of Visa, wanted to take his distributed business model around the world and teach organizations of all kinds how to actually work in more healthy, non-hierarchical, distributed ways. I was the person who was brought in to actually teach the Navy, American Express, the Kellogg School, how to actually work in distributed ways. And after I did that for a couple of years, we discovered that organizations really weren't ready. It was too soon. It wasn't going to happen, and my heart was broken as a result of it. I was part of a project with the person who invented the Euro and Craig Newmark of Craigslist to figure out how to build a Facebook sort of social network before Facebook existed. And in each one of these things, I ended up having my heart broken and realizing that while I had moved the needle a little bit, I wasn't sure that I believed that there was hope. I wasn't sure that we actually could turn around society. I didn't really know that we could improve the world. All I wanted to do was help the people that I wanted to help or that needed and asked for my help. I suspect like many of you. So when Jim asked me the question, "Are you in?" and I said no, I said, yeah, maybe I will be, but right now this is just too scary. It's too big, and I just don't believe you can do it. I'm sorry. And I actually went on a trip, and some other things happened. My father passed away. And, how stories like this go. You can probably imagine, sure enough, I ended up being pulled into this organization. And I've spent about a year of my life working with some of the leading thinkers in the world on how we can actually restructure our society and provide some resources, some technologies, and some hope on how to improve the world. But the reason I'm telling you this, and the reason we're going on about this at the end of a session that was so very, very inspiring, is that what really got me to work in this organization, what really got me to actually think about this differently, was one of the people who headed it up, and was a catalyst more so than a leader in this case, turned to me and he said, "Marcia, if you choose not to join us in this alternative game, a different way of looking at the world, if you choose not to do this, I have a request. And that request is, would you please stop helping fixing some of these organizations that really should die?" That was an aha moment. And frankly, I haven't been able to go back. I can't unlearn. I can't unthink. I can't unprocess that reality. And when I listen to the conversations that have been going on for the last day and a half, it's not that I'm not inspired. I have been inspired. But I also believe in my heart that many of you are taking these shift ideas, these transformative ideas, and thinking way too small about them. You're thinking about how to apply them to your organization. You're thinking about how to apply them to a product or a client or a customer. And frankly, we're at a point way beyond that. We need to be shifting the world. Everyone around us, the systems that we rely on, the communities that we live on. And we have to look inside of us, much like Sir Edmund Hillary, that we have to be able to conquer who we are, and we need to be different human beings in order to provide something different to the world. We need to be the change we want to see. A question that's been asked over and over again, aren't these ideas we've heard before? I suspect many of you have heard these ideas again and again. What is different? What can we do differently? And when I look at the historical implications of change management through the years, through the decades, through the centuries, in fact, the one thing I see that has made a difference that we don't see often enough today is that looking inside and actually changing us. So before I go any further, I'm going to ask you to start making a change in yourself. I could just ask that in a general sort of way, but I have something very specific. Jerry did an amazing job of explaining to us the issues of trust. But what we have yet to address is the issue of honesty. And this may seem like a bigger stretch than you are ready to make at the end of today. But I am convinced with growing certainty that the world I want to leave to my now 9-year-old son when he gets to be adult is a world that he is proud to live in. And frankly, one of the conditions of that world is a world where people can be honest. And by being honest, you're not considered the chump. That you're not considered the one who, you were honest and you saw where that got you. I'm going to posit that when you made your introductions to somebody yesterday, that you lied a little. This isn't like, lie on a resume or however you want to justify it, but you told a story. You had a narrative. You probably said the same thing in your introduction you've said 100 times, if not 1,000 times. What you didn't say was why, and you didn't provide us the mission within the mission. You didn't tell us why you were here as a human being. You told us why you were here as maybe a corporate representative or in the role that you play. And I would like to ask each of you to turn to the person next to you. You can do the math. You can figure out who that person is, that we just pair up. And I want you to try this. And I promise you it's not going to be easy. Even for me, it was very hard the first time I was asked to do this. I want you to reintroduce yourself. Give your name. And explain how you are going to change the world, why you are here, why you want to make a shift. I'm giving you a whole bunch of choices, a whole bunch of options, but I want you to do it truthfully. I don't mean to imply that I think you are liars, but I think we have each developed a narrative based on the kinds of things we've heard the people around us say, and we have stopped being mindful questioners, have actually asked ourselves and be willing, in a group of our peers who are willing to make shifts, to be candid, truly candid, and answer the question, why am I here? Can you do that? I go, no, I don't know about that. You can try it, okay? Let's just take maybe 2 minutes. And everybody turn to one other person and just say, here I am, and this is what I'm here. This is why I'm here. Hopefully your honesty is going well. If you can turn back when you have a moment, that would be great. So what I hope that you found that you could do is to have a level of candor, a level of honesty, hopefully a little bit of a level of vulnerability in that, and it wasn't as hard as you thought it might be. I am going to challenge you to do that for the next 5 people you introduce yourself to over the next week. Now, I've had people in this experience actually find 5 people really quickly they could introduce themselves to be able to get over it. And that's fine if you want to do that, but practice. Because what I have learned by being not just more honest, more candid, but also intellectually honest. I'll give you a specific example. I was asked to I wrote a paper, and I was asked to actually show how health could actually lead to organizations being more productive and people within those organizations being more productive. And I was asked to actually show how organizational leaders could actually push the envelope even further, and the healthier people were, the more productive they could be. And that makes perfectly good sense from my old life. But from this new honest place, I'm not trying to, push the issue of honesty as much as actually asking the question within the question or the mission within the mission. And I actually had to say I can't do that. I'm not interested in helping organizations be more productive at the expense of their employees. And I'm not even sure I would have even thought of that before. I'm not even sure I would have asked those questions to say, this is how things are done, but I don't want to do them and I don't want to be a part of them anymore. You may need to. I understand that. How your work is assembled, how your job is framed, how you have branded yourself in the world. But by beginning to peel back, to unlocking that onion inside of there, to cry a little in the process, we can start getting a little bit more humane and authentic and start representing ourselves in ways that haven't been done before. So when I ask you to do that, I have one more piece I'd like to add to that. I have a friend who is one of those people that everybody should know. His name is Doug Newberg. And in he's somebody who has spent his life. He wrote his PhD on what made the most successful people in the entire world successful. And you may ask yourself the question, well, how does he know they're most successful people in the world? And these were the people who weren't just successful by one metric or one standard. They were the people who most anybody would agree were successful, the Nelson Mandelas of the world. And he actually spent 2 years interviewing about 400 people who were considered to be the most successful in the world. And then he asked those people who they thought were the most successful, and he interviewed them. And he just wanted to get a sense as to what made them so successful. And much to his surprise, very early on in the process, when he did this, he kept hearing the same theme over and over again. It wasn't 100% accurate, it wasn't 100% consistent, but it was awfully consistent. And what they said is that early on in life, they had a sense, a feel, not a feeling, not an emotion in this particular case, but a way that they felt as human beings. And they had that, and they thought to themselves, I want to feel this way for the rest of my life. They were fully alive in some way. Their heart sang. They felt connected with everything around them. And they then spent the rest of their lives, the rest of their careers, creating a world where they could feel like that. Not only am I sad that more people aren't introduced even to that notion, but the number of people I've met who've actually said, oh, I know what that feel was. I remember when I had that. It never dawned on me that I could actually create a world where I could feel that way. I bet that if you actually spent a little time on the way home, today even, in the next few minutes, and you thought about what that feel was when you feel fully alive, you could start thinking about changing your behavior, start making different decisions for you to feel like that again. Now, why? Does that in some ways just feel so selfish and it's all about how you feel? What happened is as a result of chasing that feel, of following that feel, they were able to connect with who they were, who they are, to be fully alive on any moment, in any situation, and they were able to make better decisions. They were able to prioritize, and they were able to say, that is not for me. So what I have found is that between being honest with ourselves, to be following that mission, whatever we are here for, and to be able to actually pursue that, and to be able to identify that feel, that we can start at a cellular level, on a day in and day out level, start making different decisions and start owning up to why we are really here. I don't want a negative narrative, as we heard a little bit from John. I want a big opportunity for us to be able to create a world that we all want to live in. So the fact that I'm sharing this with you in some ways is selfish for me. My feel is hair on fire. That is when I'm the most alive. Now, I happen to live in a small rural community, and when I'm trying to do whatever I'm trying to do in the world, if I actually create it to the hair on fire, people get worried. But that's when I'm at my best. And when I'm at my best is when other people are at their best. So I can give you all sorts of aspirational states, of all sorts of perspectives and changes you can make in your lives. But frankly, that's not going to hold water. That's not going to hold weight tomorrow when you're on your own and I'm nowhere near you, or Mark, or any of the guides who are here. You have to take this moment, to take that moment, to look inside and figure out what the hell you are doing. Work doesn't suck because of the work. It has to do with all of us agreeing that it's okay. And it's not okay. We wake up every morning, we have hope we can change the world, and then we go back to playing along with the crazy-ass systems that we've been looking at every other day. Not just tomorrow, but tonight. Ask yourself at every turn, not the habits that you have fallen into and you have lived over and over and over again, but what are the changes I need to make? How could I do this differently every single time so that I am absolutely being who I need to be and contributing to a world that is one I want to live in. Is that too much to ask? Yes? No? Then why the hell haven't we done it yet? What is it that we need to look inside and find in our hearts and be able to say, I can't not do that? That's really the question. How can we not take control of our lives and our world in a way that works for us, that works in a way that takes whatever skills and talents and powers and energies we have and apply them to what matters? If you are for a moment thinking this is just too nebulous and too big and focused, I am going to suggest that you haven't listened enough. Not to me, I couldn't care less if you listened to me. I care about if you're listening to yourself and your heart and what matters to you and what people are saying around you and what actually you care about. And to find your feel and to be honest about it and be able to pursue in the rest of your days in a way that matters, a shift not just in your organization, but in yourself, your society, and with a big old smile on your face because we can't not do this. I am counting on every single one of you. I need you. You need you. You need every single other person in here for us all to be doing this. And my challenge is not just for you to look inside, but for you to ask these questions of everyone you talk to for the next couple of days, for the next couple of weeks. Make this the conversation. Why are you here? What are you working on? How are we together going to make a shift that matters to us and we can see change? I have a lot of people just tell me that I don't see it big enough. But when I actually start seeing it small enough, I see it ripple up and I see it make waves that matter. I believe in you. I hope you believe in you. I've been working on this for 43 years at this point, from the time that I was 7. And I don't think it's too much to ask that you start working on it if you haven't already. And if you have already, amp it up. We're running out of time. It's time for us all to do what we're here to do and for you to play your part because you can't not do it. We all need you to participate. I thank you, but I also want to kick you in the ass and say, let's get on with it. So up, shake it out, start sweating if that's what it requires, but move and take action. And I can't tell you what that is. Only you know what that is, and it's time. So thank you.